welcome back to John Virgil's Garage. All right, so I apologize, it's been a while since I made a video. It's been a few months. One of my last videos, someone made a comment that I should be doing quality over quantity, and that kind of resonated with me. I've been making a bunch of videos that were kind of filler, nothing really great. So I was trying to prepare for a good video for you guys. So the plan is to swap a 6R80 into this truck. It's a modern Ford transmission, 6-speed, to be controlled with a US quick 6-shift controller. Have a trans brake and all the goodies. So since the last video, I've turned the boost up to about 18 psi. It's roughly making 840 wheel horsepower and 1223 foot-pound of torque. Last night I had some friends over, took the truck out on a drive, did a really good third gear to fourth gear rip, power shifted into fourth. At the top of fourth, transmission blew up. So ZF5's dead. Something's grinding, something's bad in there. I was able to get home in first gear, going 8 miles an hour down the highway, but I got it home, and so today we're gonna pull the transmission apart, or pull it off, pull it apart, and figure out what I broke. But I was planning on doing a 6R80 swap anyway, so this is just motivating me to get it done sooner. So for the 6R80 swap, I picked up this billet aluminum adapter. It's a thick boy, countersunk holes. This will bolt to the 460 block, the big block Ford block, and then the transmission out of a 3.5 EcoBoost 6R80 bolts to this guy. It uses this starter for the automatic flex plate, and then I got a SCAT SFI rated flex plate. So this kit is designed to work with the stock 460 Ford flex plate for an automatic starter for a 460 Ford. It uses a couple different adapters here to make the 6R80 stock torque converter work with it. I'm going to start out with just the stock torque converter. I'm probably going to change it, but that's what I'm starting with, and then here's the hardware for the adapter kit. Pretty simple. There's a little bit of modifying you have to do to the bell housing on the 6R80 to be able to pull the starter without having to drop the transmission if you do it the way it's designed, but I believe I have a workaround for that, which we'll dig into later. And then we're going to use a SFI rated flex plate. So this is what we need to do the swap, minus the transmission, oil cooler, and all that stuff. So there are other ways to do this transmission swap. There's probably a better way to do it. There's a Speed Gems makes an adapter, but that adapter's quite a bit, it's like $1,200. I got this adapter for just a couple hundred. I got hooked up from a buddy, and so that's the reason why I'm going with this route. We'll see what it does. I don't mind breaking shit. If I break this stuff, I'll just fix it and do it again and try it next time. But I like finding the limit on the parts. And we found the limit on the ZF5. I would be comfortable beating on a ZF5. I mean, I've had this truck turboed for a couple years now. I have beat the living snot out of it constantly every time I drive it, and it finally broke at 800 horsepower, 800 wheel horsepower, 1,200 foot-pound of torque. So I would say safely, if you had a stock 460, an EFI 460, you threw a turbo on it, you kept it below 14 psi, I believe the transmission will last. I mean, depending on your 460 and your camshaft and all that, I mean, you can't just go off of a random boost number, but probably anything 700 horsepower and under, I think you're going to be fine with the ZF5. I got greedy. I kept turning it up. I knew I was going to break it, and I planned on doing the 6R80 swap, which is why I had the parts already for the swap. So I'm going to go up to, there's a place up in Bellingham, Washington that's got the 6R80 that I need out of a 3.5 EcoBoost for $600. I'm going to run up there and grab that guy. But first, let's pull the ZF5 off and see what I broke. Pulled the rear drive shaft. Here's my anti-wrap bar, a little shackle. We've been leaking some oil out the output seal. I feel like it's got a brand new seal. I feel like it puts so much torque on this drivetrain that it just overwhelms the seal, but who knows. And we got to pull off a bunch more stuff. So I just pulled the inspection cover bolts. This isn't normally wet. Something's leaking out of here pretty good. But I just pulled the inspection cover bolts, and this chunk of metal fell out of there. I don't know what it's to, but it was up in here, and when I opened that, it slid right out. Guess we're gonna find out. Man, I wonder if this transmission isn't broken and it's just the clutch. Which is weird though, because it was grinding in every gear like it wouldn't stay in. It's gotta be the transmission, I would imagine. All right, guys, let's see if I can get that on camera good. So Luke Single disc HD clutch. That's at 800 wheel horsepower. It doesn't look that bad. Some hot spots. So this is the flywheel. I don't see any cracking. Alright, here's the clutch. I am absolutely impressed by this guy. It is worn down some, but when I dropped the transmission, a piece of metal fell out. So we'll see where that came from. Dude, no one believes that this clutch held as much power as it did, but it definitely did. That side looks not terrible either. There's some metal shavings going on in here. Down in there. So we gotta figure out where that's coming from, but it doesn't look that bad. Alright guys, here's some damage. So that spring is all jacked up. Let's see if I can get some better lighting in here, but there's chunks of metal in there. And I don't know what that is. It's like the internal hub on the clutch, but it is for sure broken. I'll get some better lighting. All right, guys, ZF5 isn't broke. It's the hub on the inside of this guy. You can see some broken. Flip that around so you can see it better. So there's broken metal out through here. Get that to focus. So there's chunks of metal. So this hub has sheared off inside the clutch. I mean, it's not supposed to sound like that. So that transmission might not be broke. I'm looking through the inspection cover on the transmission, my new four-wheeler. The gears in there look good. I've been spinning it and shifting it through the gears in the spline, and nothing's broken. So I think the trans is good. This is absolutely insane. So the ZF5 lives, but this clutch is jacked, which makes me happy because now I can sell the ZF5 and get some money for it. So I thought I broke the transmission. Turns out I didn't. I got my clutch disc stuck in a vise on the bench. It's clamped onto the hub. The hub is spinning inside the clutch. So I broke the clutch. See? Hub's not moving, clutch is spinning. Broke it. So it is spinning inside there. You can see that's hitting the spring and taking chunks off. So my transmission is still good to go. I just broke the clutch. So these, it's time for a better clutch, but I still am going to do the 6R80 swap. You can see it's all broke up in there. So, yeah, good to know. There's the limit. All right, guys. Well, transmission's fine. I was wrong. It's the clutch. So that transmission's still running strong. I guess you can consider the clutch kind of like a fuse. It broke instead of the transmission, but this is definitely motivating me to get that 6R80 done. So I'm going to pull all the manual transmission parts off my truck and get them ready to be sold as a package for anyone that wants to do a ZF5 swap in their truck from a E4OD or whatever. So I'm going to work on that, and we'll go pick up a 6R80 here this week. All right, hey, I wanted to give you guys an update video on the old Turbo 460 with the 6R80 swap. We're making some pretty good progress here. All right, so transmission's in. It's a 6R80 there. I fabricated my own cross member, and I just built the transfer case shift linkage right here. So here we go. Made that bracket. It bolts up to the front of the rear of the transmission. This is the middle part here. This is the advanced adapters. Adapter to adapt a Atlas transfer case to a 6R80, but it's the same bolt pattern as the BorgWarner 1356. So this guy's dirty. I'm going to pull it out and rebuild it. and clean it up still. But so I used the stock shifter up there, and then I made a bracket, has some, I don't know, with it's a little bit thicker and 1/4 inch plate. I bent it to a 90 degree on my press over there. I have a little press brake, and then it's got a Heim joint rod connected to the transfer case and then to this arm. So I just cut those stock mounts and then drilled them out for the Heim, and then some bolts run through it, and she's solid. She shifts perfect, and I can adjust it with that Heim joint. I can adjust the throw or if it needs to change anything. And then I built this transfer case or transmission cross member. I ended up boxing in the rail just like the factory does. I wasn't sure if that was needed. I'm painting everything still, but I use all scrap metal I had laying around, so some of it has welds that don't make any sense. So that's boxed in, and it's same on this side, boxed in up here. It's solid, very solid. So square tube to the mount. This is some thick guys right there. And then this is a stock 460 ZF5 BorgWarner 1356 mount. So whatever that mount came with my truck, I just bought a new one. But that is the stock mount for my truck, and then it bolts right to the advanced adapters adapter perfectly, and then just built a cross member. You could probably make the stock cross member work, but if you see here, that's where the old one was, and I moved it back. So this hole with the 6R80N, here's the adapter, the billet adapter, and then the 6R80 is bolted up to the 460. Get some light there for you guys. So 6R80 is bolted up to the adapter, and then the length of the 6R80 plus the adapter plate makes this overall package an 1 3/4 inches longer than stock. So as a result, my front drive shaft was too short and my rear one was too long. So I'm getting those made right now. So this is just mock-up. I still got to pull the transmission and transfer case out, rebuild them both. Transmission's getting a bunch of new parts. It should be 1500 horsepower capable with the trans brake. I'm very excited about that. And then the transmission, or the transfer case, is going to get a stock rebuild on it. It held up fine before. I don't see any reason why it won't hold up now, but we'll see if I break it up. It's super easy to get out of there with this cross member. I just undo these bolts here and drop this guy out. Super easy. So yeah, I'm going to be mounting some new parts underneath here. The transmission cooler is going to get mounted back up in this area, and that's going to be for the auxiliary transmission cooler. I'll show you guys that. So here's the shifter. Show you guys the let me get some decent lighting in here. Okay, so transmission, this wiring hanging down, this is temporary. I'm just redoing everything. But transfer case shifter works actually crisper than it did new. And then this is my low car shifter for the 6R80. So it has reverse, neutral, drive, and then sport. And then in sport you kick it over, and now you can downshift, upshift, downshift, upshift. So it's not mounted to the floor yet. So I made a patch panel to go where the old shifter was, and I'm building a center console to make this thing look nice with a cup holder and stuff. I'm going to TIG weld it out of aluminum, 6061 aluminum, which I have all my sheets over there. This is what the center console is going to look like. So there'll be little switch panel and a cup holder, and then my transmission controller is going to go through here with the knob and then an LCD screen, so I can control the transmission and make tuning on the fly pretty easily. So I just made it out of cardboard to get my rough shape, and then I will be welding it up out of aluminum hopefully today. So we got lots of parts in the bed of the truck here. That is my stage 2 frictions and steels for the inside of the 6R80. I got my gasket rebuild kit up there. There's the torque converter. I didn't install it while I was mocking everything up. And then this is my transmission cooler, and it's a nice guy from whatever this company's called, Derail. So 15900 is part number, and it's good for what I'm doing. It's 1/2 inch line, pretty big beefy line. Yeah. So we're plugging away kind of a mess here, but we got our adapter bolts and bushings. I'm doing a Sunax zip kit inside the 6R80 also. It's like a shift kit. And then while it's in there, I'm running all new line for fuel line. This is the Jag stuff that is good for ethanol fuels. The hoses that I've been running are not ethanol safe, and I reached underneath there and was feeling some lines, and they were feeling pretty soft, so I was worried that maybe they were getting degraded from the E85 going through them. When these were not rated for E85. This is the ProFlow, I think 250, and this is the 350 stuff that's made for ethanol fuels. Alright guys, we're chipping away at this thing here. So I'm working on the center console right now, doing a little bit of TIG welding. I'm a little rusty, but I'll show you guys. So that's the start of it. Shifter's going to go in right here, and then there'll be a top plate with a notch and the cup holder. This is where the computer will go for the transmission. I'll figure out how to mount it behind it so it's mostly hidden. Use some rib nuts, and yeah, so just turned out pretty good. I'm going to grind these welds. If you can see them, they're not amazing, but I'll grind them up so they look good. There's the top plate just sitting on there, but so shifter will come through right here, and then there's a cup holder. And then my rocker switch panel will be back here. Well, I got the center console pretty much fabricated. All the welding's done anyways. I still need to add the computer transmission controller where it's going to sit and the rocker panel for the switches. But there it is in place. The wire's hanging back there for my AEM. I just got to tuck them back up. But that is how it's going to sit in the truck. I think it turned out pretty damn good. It's going to get painted texture black. It's aluminum, but it's going to get painted texture black. There's going to be the transmission controller screen will go here. So there'll be a knob with a window for the LCD. So I'm going to be cutting a rectangle hole. And then up here, this is where the rocker switch, there's like a, was it a three rocker switches. Those are going to go right here. All right, fellas, here's the center console. It's all painted up. Man, that thing looks good. So I ground my welds down. It's all TIG welded aluminum, and I ground it smooth just to give it like a finished look. So switch rocker panel goes here, cup holder, and then this is where the shifter comes through, and I got some of that dust cover fabric crap. It's actually part of a vacuum. I cut it off, but it looks good. All right, fellas, there's the finished product. The red back there you can see is wiring. I'm going to put a loom around it so you won't see that, or I might run it through the carpet, but there she is. So quick 6 controllers mounted in here. Make my adjustments. The only reason why I wanted to see this is you can program this knob to do different things. I'm going to use it to turn my overdrive on and off. So that'll be one click from the main menu. We'll turn overdrive off. And then you can look at a bunch of transmission data on this window here, and it's in there solidly. So you can make a bunch of changes, like tuning changes on the fly. But I'm also going to have my laptop cable. There'll be some wires coming out through here. There's a small opening in the underneath the console here between the bottom and the top cover, where there'll be a harness that comes out along with the shift cable right here, and then the harness will allow me to plug in my laptop and stuff so I can tune the transmission from the laptop. But that's where it's going to sit. I think it turned out pretty damn awesome. There's still enough room for someone to sit here in the middle and have one leg on each side and then shifting through the gears. So this is the low car ES shifter for the 6R80, park, reverse, neutral drive, sport, and then there's plus and minus so you can slap shift it up and down. The detent for sport in between sport and drive is on the transmission, not built into the shifter. So for here, you don't feel that change, but so push it down to go into reverse. There's reverse, neutral, drive, and then this would be sport. And then for sport, you can, I don't have my knob tight, you can hit it over and then power shift wrap up and down to shift down. And so backwards is down, forwards is up. And you move it back. This isn't bolted down yet. I gotta remove the top cover and bolt it to the floor now that I've got it set up how I want it. And then this a little rattly, I'm going to put some 3M just on the inside to keep that from rattling. I couldn't get a hole saw exactly the same size as this, so it's a little bit rattly. But and then these switches, so before I had switches here and down here underneath this panel, I went to the junkyard and got a new one of these and a new panel down here for the fuse cover. I had just like random switches, none of them matched. I had one switch here and then two down here, so I just rerouted the wiring here. So this is fog lights, this is for my stereo for the subwoofer, and then this is to turn on my Bluetooth for tuning the truck. So if I want it, because you know I mount my laptop up here, or my tablet up here to these two magnets. It's just a little 8-inch tablet, so I'll be able to what I've been doing is tuning through Bluetooth. So that's Bluetooth, subwoofer, and then fog lights. There'll be a wiring harness coming off the Quick 6 that goes to the ECU, and then it goes to the transmission. So the Quick 6 will communicate with the Megasquirt, and then also with the transmission. So there'll be a harness from the Quick 6 coming up. Underneath here, you won't see it, but well, actually I can show you. That panel right there, I made that to cover the hole in the floor. So that panel, I'll have a hole in it with a grommet, and the harness from the going to the ECU from the transmission controller will go through the hole and then into the engine bay, and then the one for the transmission will come out through here underneath the seat and go through the floor and underneath the seat along with the shifter cable. So I think it'll be pretty nice. I really like the look of this. I think it looks pretty damn good, especially with that billet knob. And then this stuff is just it's like for shop vacs, so you can replace the scrubby part, and I just trimmed it down, and I don't know, I feel like I didn't like how it was open there. I feel like it needed something. So all right, well, I'm gonna mount this up, start working on my wiring. Transmission's in place, transfer case is in place. I fabricated up, I don't know if I showed you guys that yet, I fabricated up a shifter for the transfer case, so it works just like stock. All right, fellas, I'm back at it here with the 6R80 swap on the Turbo 460. So we got the center consoles mounted up and in. I got to wire the transmission controller. I still have to, I have my checklist, it's pretty long. So my drive shafts are getting built. I got to mount the transmission cooler, the remote cooler for it, and run the AN lines for that. I have 1/2-inch line for that, or -8. So I just need to run the wiring for the shifter, the wiring for the transmission controller, and the shifter cable. Then I will work on the remote transmission cooler, and that's it. We're ready to drop transmission and transfer case out, rebuild both of those, clean them, paint them, put them back in, and I'm done, man. Pretty pumped, pretty excited, guys. So we got our list for things left. I got to make some modifications to the adapter plate and my starter, just clearance a few things. Still got to do the transmission wiring, transmission controller, fuel lines, but we got a lot crossed off, so I feel pretty good about that. I mounted my second button here. So this one is line lock. So I'll come up, pump the brake, hold this guy, do burnout, let go. Then I'll go up to wherever I'm staging. I'm not really planning on taking this to the track a whole lot, but I really like the idea of having the trans brake. So trans brake's in this deal. This will be the button for the trans brake and the two-step. So hold that button, floor it, rev it up to wherever the two-step's set at, build some boost, let go when it launches. And I'm gonna have to play around with launching from drive or sport, and then also manually shifting it. So yeah, I like the stock steering wheel, so I kept the stock steering wheel. There is an option where you could, and I might do this at some point, is get a steering wheel, stock steering wheel with overdrive on and off buttons, or not overdrive, cruise control. So on off, and then cruise control, like accelerate and cruise, coast. So if you use those buttons, you can actually wire all of this stuff in to those buttons. So then you have a completely stock looking steering wheel with your cruise control buttons that'll activate, you know, like turn them on, and then one will be line lock and one will be two-step trans brake. So I still need to figure out my wiring for my neutral safety switch. The factory one plugs in here. When you push the clutch, it activates it. So I need to figure out what pin I need to run to this. This shifter has a neutral safety switch built into it. There's a couple. I can do the neutral safety switch off the shifter or the one off the transmission controller. They have there's one for each. So a few options. I got to do some wiring today. I'm going to start with my wiring and running my shifter cable, and then we'll go from there. Once I get that stuff done, then I'm gonna work on the transmission controller. Then we'll drop everything out, clean it, paint it, and finish weld a few things, and she should be ready to go. So fuel lines are all ran. These are all E85 fuel lines. My lighting in this garage sucks right now because it's so dark out. So all new fuel lines are ran. All the wiring is done. I put a relay in to the neutral safety switch, or like the clutch pedal switch. So I wired that. There's a few wires on the pedal. I don't know if I have that little sensor laying here. But so now when the launch pin that goes to the ECU is now wired to this. So this button will work as trans brake and launch control. So same button. They ground the ECU to activate. And then the neutral safety switch is wired into a relay to this. So this computer will send a signal to it'll activate the relay, which will allow the truck to start. So that's done. Pretty good there. My new drive shafts from Drivelines Northwest. These guys are out of Everett, Washington, and they are awesome to work with. Gave me a real good deal on. I had to shorten the rear drive shaft and lengthen the front shaft. They're balanced. I didn't have them put new U-joints in just because I had just put these ones in, and then they painted it and threw some stickers on it. But yeah, they do great work. There's my cross member painted over there. We got our transfer case dropped out in the transmission, so I got to rebuild those today, hopefully. I'm gonna grab a flashlight here and I'll show you guys the transmission transmission cooler is mounted up under there. That fan is a draw through, so it's pulling cold air through. I gotta run my lines. They're 1/2-inch line, 8AN. All my fuel lines are ran. And then there's the adapter plate. I gotta make a few modifications to the adapter plate and to the bell housing on the transmission. So I had to drill this hole, which is like 2 above the starter, to take the threads out, so that I can run a bolt through this side of the housing. And then I'm gonna cut this ear off where the light's shining right there. That's got to get cut off, and that will allow me to remove the starter without having to remove the transmission. The kit that I have requires you to install the starter and then install the transmission, but if you just cut this ear off right here, which isn't much, just this bolt basically right here, then you can remove the starter without removing the transmission. So today is clean these, pressure wash them, rebuild both the transmission and the transfer case, and then slap it all back together, paint it, and we'll be done. We'll be on our final assembly, and then the thing should be up and running. All right, fellas. So the adapter plate here is on. I took it off the block. The problem is, one of the problems with this adapter plate is the starter, per their instructions, has to bolt on. You bolt the adapter plate on the engine, then you bolt the starter on, and then you put the transmission in. But if starter goes out, you can't replace the starter. So all I did was cut this little bolt. We don't use this bolt here anyways. It blocks that bolt. That's the bolt right there that holds the starter in. With this little chingus here, you can't get the starter bolt out. That's why you have to do it. So I just chopped that bitch off with my bandsaw, and I maybe went a little bit too far. So next time I would say don't cut all the way down. So there's now a little bit of a gap, but that's all right. I don't care. So anyways, now I can access that bolt, and these bolts go on first, so that's not a problem, but this is the one for the starter. So now I can change the starter. So the adapter plate does have a gap here. There was a gap even with this piece in place. You can see around right there. It's not perfect, but it needs to be like that for clearance for the starter, but otherwise it's completely contained. When it's up against the engine, the bottom of the block goes across here. So this part, just a little bit, is open. I'm going to build a plate that'll go from that bolt to this bolt and block off the bottom there. And then I'll probably maybe just weld a piece of aluminum here to cover up that hole. But in all reality, it doesn't need to be completely sealed up and airtight. Anyways, so I just pressure washed this guy, and then I cut that, which was stupid. So, but yeah. So I pressure washed my transfer case. I'm going to rebuild that and then rebuild these guys. I'll paint them once they're rebuilt and then put them back in. But so far, oh, and the other mod you have to do, this bolt here, it's threaded, and then on the adapter plate itself it's threaded. So if you run what I ran the bolt in to try to bolt it here, and the threads didn't line up, so I had to drill this thread so that it would line up with the thread in there. If that makes sense. So I just had to get rid of the threads on this part so the bolt slides through and then threads into the adapter plate. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to use that bolt. Alright fellas, so I'm going to start rebuilding the transfer case first. So I just do it on the floor right here. I pressure washed it and then kind of wire wheeled it a little bit. I'm going to paint it when I'm done. Just pulled the tail shaft housing off. That bushing looks pretty roasted, so I'll be replacing that. And then whoever rebuilt this thing last, somebody's been into it. There was nothing wrong with this transfer case. I just want to freshen it up. It was leaking, but they used a god-awful amount of RTV. So, yeah, I'm going to keep plugging away. I'll update you guys here in a minute. I'm not going to film the entire thing, but I'll turn on the camera when I hit anything important. It's another day here. I'm not filming a ton just because I'm trying to hammer through. I want this truck on the road so freaking bad. It's not even funny. But I got my table set up. Transfer case is back on its final assembly. I've cleaned it, replaced all the bushings, all the bearings, all the seals. Chain's good, shifter fork's good. I replaced all the Teflon on the shifters, the like actual rails or whatever they're called that select and move. So the only thing I'm reusing is my oil pump, the gears obviously, and then the chain. Everything else looks fantastic. So I'm going to do my final assembly, and then we'll paint her up, and then move on to the transmission. So it's all cleaned up. She's looking good. This kit down here I bought off eBay. It is so nice for driving these races and the bearings and stuff. I use that in my press over there. So some of the there's a bushing, there's a big brass bushing inside there that's kind of hard to get to. If I didn't have this kit, it would have been much more difficult. And then also I bought some better snap ring pliers. These little guys weren't doing the job. That one kicks ass. So I gotta clean this half, replace those two bearings, and then yeah, she'll be ready to go. All right, we're back at it. So yesterday I rebuilt the transfer case. Today I'm doing the transmission. Show you guys what I did here. So I used this paint. Got it off Amazon. It was not expensive at all. This stuff looks so good. It looks new. I painted that's the Advanced Adapters transfer case adapter for an Atlas transfer case, which works perfect for the BorgWarner 1356. So I painted this guy up. This is where my speedometer gear goes. I just put a little plug in there to keep the paint out of it. but it looks good. So now we're gonna do the transmission. I painted the case some yesterday. I was just screwing around, see how it looked, but I'll have to do it again because I'm gonna get it all dirty. Got my drive shafts, so yeah, we'll do the transmission today and hopefully get this guy done. All right, guys, I just dropped the pan for the first time. I got my little. I'm working here in a tiny 2-car garage. That's also my gym and the family storage, and yeah, and I got my. This thing is awesome, by the way. It's a JD Squared Model 3 tubing bender. It's flipped around the other way, but this is when it flips towards me. I can run the tubing out the door, and I can bend all sorts of tube. And then I have up above the garage, I have storage up here with a bunch of 1 3/4, 2-inch, and 1-inch tubes. And I have dies for 1 3/4, 1-inch, and 2-inch. So the 1-inch die I'll bend solid 1-inch. It's pretty rad. I'm going to convert it to hydraulic at some point, but right now it's just bolted to the floor. Anyway, so I got my folding table. This thing has a capacity of 500 pounds. This transmission weighs like 220, 215, so less than me. And I tested it out, me jumping up and down on this tray table, and it holds it just fine. So hopefully we don't collapse. But the inside of the pan is pretty dang clean, man. I mean, there is like no metal on this magnet. I haven't touched the magnet. Just a little bit of metal on it. The fluid in there looks good. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. This transmission has, I want to say it was 120,000 miles, and it's from a 2013 F-150 with the 3.5 EcoBoost. You have to do the 3.5 bell housing with this adapter plate, and I also bought the manual to rebuild this guy just so I can get all the specs and stuff. But the clutches come with their own specs because you actually add clutches with the Stage 2 kit. Anyways, so we're going to keep digging into this guy, and I'll update you guys here in a minute. Alright guys, got the valve body out. Using my book, just going step by step. This is super easy. This book is legit. This thing looks spotless. Like I've been looking at the oil that's in here, and there's no metal. I'm stoked. Alright guys, it's empty. Case is empty. I gotta clean it. Everything came out super easily. I gotta pull that bearing out of there still in that seal. And then down here I have everything laid out. So, 6R80. I don't want to jinx myself. There's the oil pump, pan and valve body, and then all the different, what do you call them, drives, clutch drives. Man, this thing comes apart super easily. Like, the book is awesome to have. Definitely helpful. I don't think you need it. But, you know, first time building it, this is awesome to have it. But man, everything came apart great. All of these clutches look perfect. This transmission must be in very good shape. There was no metal in anything. Like I showed earlier, the magnet was practically clean. So this snap ring is the hardest one to get out. This is the hardest thing to do on this transmission rebuild so far anyways. I don't want to jinx myself, but all you basically need is some big needle nose pliers. They sell a special snap ring plier. I just use these guys, and it actually worked really well. So, and I got these on Amazon, like a set of them for it was like $12. So, all right. I am just show you guys here. So, we got the Ford overdrive clutch assembly taken apart, and this here is the intermediate shaft. This is the stock one. So it goes inside this deal here. I don't know all the technical terms, but this manual is this shit. Super easy to work on. And I happen to have in my mess pile over here a billet intermediate shaft. So this bad boy's supposed to be good for 1,500 horsepower. So we're going to be swapping it in place of that guy. Okay, here's the billet one. It's got that gold finish on it compared to the stock one. They're the exact same dimensions. The billet one is just a hell of a lot stronger. Has all the same holes for the oil flow and everything else. It's cold as crap in here, and it's almost 11 p.m. But transmission is essentially done. I just got to put the pan back on. I didn't film everything throughout the process. It would have been kind of boring. This video would have been way too long, but very easy transmission to rebuild. There's a couple things that you need that I had to make. Essentially, I made them out of some piece of scrap metal, but it's a ring that you use on the press to compress the drums, to get the springs out so that you can take the lock ring off to get the spring out and get to the some of the clutch packs. So anyways, it was easy to make. I'll show you guys that later. I'm gonna put the pan on and throw the transmission in the truck. All right, so the flex plate is in place, ARP bolts. They got that oil underneath the head, so it's kind of like the lube or whatever. Adapter plate uses these flush Allen guys, and I torqued them to the factory spec at 50 pounds. This is an SFI SCAT flex plate. I don't know where to put the SFI sticker at. Do you put that on the flywheel or flex plate, or do you put it somewhere else so people can see it? I have no idea. I'm probably not going to put it on there because I don't think, I mean, how is somebody supposed to check it if it, I don't, it doesn't make sense to me. So it's not going to go on there. I'll keep it, I don't know what to do with it. I'm not really drag racing this truck anyways. Yeah, so we're ready to put the transmission in. All right, fellas, we're on our first drive, maiden voyage with the 6R80. Turn this around here. So I got my computer data logging. When I bypassed the clutch safety switch, I messed up something for the rear ABS, so I gotta fix that. But Quick 6 is doing its thing. The window down there, just cruising along. I'm getting way better fuel mileage already. And then I got my laptop running the software for the Quick 6R80 Quick 6 Gen 2, and I'm data logging that as well. So we're just doing the break-in and working on all of the tuning. All right, this has been going for quite a while now. I had to stop working on the transmission during Christmas and the holidays and stuff, mostly to keep the wife happy, but we ran into some problems a few times. I kind of got lost in my videos just because I've been frustrated with this deal, but essentially there was an issue with the valve body from the Sunax zip kit that was causing some really weird shifting from 3 to 4. The oil looked bad, the transmission fluid, it chewed up a bearing or a race, and just something was off. I think that it was eroding, so if the material got from the valve body, got into the pump, eroded the pump, which kind of just caused some of the bearings to get jacked up, and it was a mess. But I'm back together, putting it back together. Right now I'm checking the in-play of the input shaft. So all the internals are in now. I got it just sitting up on some blocks. Internals, it's fully assembled. Everything went together smooth. I triple checked all my tolerances, and right now I got my dial indicator set up. I just took a piece of steel, it's a 1/4 inch or whatever, bolted it to the bell housing, got my dial indicator set up on it. And you want to measure how much this input shaft comes up and down, how much room it has. I don't think I can do it while I'm filming, but I got exactly 10 thousandths, I believe is what it would be called. But factory spec is, stand by, this book, if you're ever rebuilding one of these, is absolutely like worth the cost. So here we go for so the oil pump goes in, torque the bolts. There's a shim here that will adjust how much it the input shaft will travel. So depending on if you don't have enough front shaft in play, you can change it with these shims. So it's to be between 0.008 to 0.015 of an inch. So I think that's 8 thousandths to 15 thousandths is how you would call it. My dial indicator, each tick mark is 0.001. So I got it set up here at 0. And when I pull, the only way to pull up, I had to ask a couple people who have done these before, but the easiest, best way is just to put one of these guys, for some reason can't remember the name of them, but grab one of these guys, clamp it onto the input shaft, and then just pick up. Because normally on like a C6 or something you can pry down here, but this guy doesn't have an ability to, because the inside here there's two different shafts that move independently, and you can't pry it from a spot down here to measure in play. So clamp this guy on here. Is it a vice grip? Yeah. And then just pick up on it, and then it'll give you your in play. I'm exactly at 10 thousandths, so I'm kind of in the middle of the spec here, on the tighter side, but it's right where it needs to be. So I'm happy about that. I measured all of my clearances. This book gives you, I made notes here, but you got to take measurements of each. Since I'm using the stage 2 clutches and frictions, they're not stock. You got to make sure you have the right amount of clearance in each pack. One other thing that I did notice on this book is that there is one mistake where they put each diagram has the layout, and this one's backwards. So in the picture it shows the fingers pointing down. They actually need to point up. But other than that, the book is awesome. It comes with all the torque specs, tells you common wear items, where to check, gives you each bearing, which way they go, and races and whatnot. So definitely a very good book. The other thing is when you're compressing these pistons that hold these springs, so these springs go inside and there's snap rings. In order to compress those, they sell a special tool for it. I found that using my shop press and pieces of pipe, exhaust pipe, I made 3 of them to do the different sizes, and they're perfect. So about 2-inch thick exhaust pipe. I think this is 6-inch, 4-inch, and 3-inch. It gives you almost exactly what you need to press those guys down to get this thing going. So, all right, well, I'm going to finish putting this back together, put the valve body back on, throw it back in the truck, and hopefully have this thing running today. Hey, everybody. So it's Sunday, March 17th, 2024. I started this project many months ago. I was putting the video together last night to try to post it, and I realized I never filmed an outro. So right now we're going to go over real quick everything that happened and what's going on with it now. The truck is running perfect. The 6R80 is running perfect. I finally got it sorted. I definitely learned along the way and made some mistakes. Let me show you guys what's up. All right, the first thing I'm going to cover here, you see this gold? That's a QuickTime 1/8-inch thick 0.125 spacer for big block Ford. I needed this to get the torque converter clearance proper. Without that 1/8-inch thick plate, the torque converter was too tight. There wasn't enough room for expansion. It was almost zero as far as torque converter spacing. So adding this got me right where I needed it to be. So that's something to think about if you're going to do this swap and you're going to use this adapter. I recommend buying one of these QuickTime plates or some sort of spacer. You can come up with a couple different ways, but I like this plate because it enclosed everything back up in there. Okay. Next issue I had was this mount. Earlier in the video I showed that I was using a stock mount. That mount was way too soft, and it was causing a ton of flex in this drivetrain as it shifted. When it was a manual truck, I guess I wasn't causing as much flex on it, but so this polyurethane energy suspension mount solved that issue and improved the shift quite a bit. So we have the rebuilt BorgWarner 1356, the 6R80 with the adapter kit. Everything's set up in here. My turbo kit fit perfectly. I didn't have to make any changes to that. So yeah, the other issue that I ran into was that Sonax zip kit. I installed it in this valve, in the valve body that came with this transmission, and the Sonax zip kit was designed for a worn out valve body. When this one wasn't, it caused it to bind up, and it ultimately jacked up that valve body. I returned the Sonax shift kit, and I put a stock valve body back in this guy, and it is much better. So yeah, she's doing what she needs to do. It's shifting good, drives good, it's way faster than what it was for sure. All right, fellas, she's up and running. We're driving down the road. It's shifting like it's supposed to. Everything's working right. I just have to run the transmission through a learn process where it learns the shifts. So I got my engine ECU data logging and running up here, and then down here on the laptop, this is just temporary. It's plugged into the Quick 6. That's controlling the transmission. Those are all the shift points and whatnot I can change. So I'm just driving along. I got her in regular drive. It's shifting nice. It's just learning the shifts as it goes and does its thing. So you just gotta put some time driving on it. They say about 20 times through all the gears before it's completely learned and built up what it needs to do. Try to show you guys the sport mode. So right now it's in drive. If I click it down to sport, then I can knock her over, and then now I can pull back to downshift, push forward to upshift. For those interested in fuel mileage, we're going about 60, just down the highway here. The ECU is calculating 16 miles per gallon. It seems to be about 14, 15 in reality. So we're going about 50 there, but that's 6 gears, slowing down for roundabout now, so it's going to go up. Now it's going way up. But yeah, so definitely getting better fuel mileage. I'm still letting the trans learn, but just rolling into it. It's hard to do one-handed. Boogies. That was maybe 40% throttle. Miles per hour, 2100 RPM. Not too bad. All right, everybody, I'm gonna end it off here, guys. I appreciate you watching. So, 6R80 swap on the Turbo 460 was good. The Quick 6 is a little finicky, but it's learning. It's getting better. The shift quality is much better with that new transmission mount. I might even make it stronger. We'll see how it goes. But I threw a GoPro under the truck to see if I can watch any flexing. But all right, guys, thanks. Appreciate everybody watching.